guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tash if you're new here. Today we will be doing a wrap-up video. I haven't filmed one of these in a long time, so I feel like I'm a bit rusty with trying to review all the books very quickly. I think the last wrap-up I did was October and September, and then November I hit a massive reading slump. I think I read maybe 3 books that month. I picked back up in December, and then I went into another reading slump in January. I didn't get that many 5-star reads, but the 5-star reads that I do have are a 5-star for a reason, so I'm very excited to talk about those. But I have had quite a lot of 3-star reads and a few DNFs in January. Starting with the first book for November, I actually have already put up a reading vlog for this book, so there is a full review there up on my channel. But I did read Normal People by Sally Rooney. I've watched the show many times but never read the book, so this was my first time going into it, experiencing the reader's journey, and it didn't disappoint. It is exactly how I expected it to be, obviously knowing what happens. I was again a little bit taken out of the story at some points just because the writing didn't match the same experience that I had while watching the show, which I usually don't feel that way. I usually feel the reading experience is 10 times better because you just get so much more information. In this particular instance, it is so different because I'm that obsessed with the show and the actors. I can't compare, like, this show and the book. The show does it better in my opinion, and I think I'm probably in the minority there, but the show does do it better. But I still thoroughly enjoyed this, and I did end up giving it a 4-star. I'm waiting to now currently pick up her new book, so keep an eye out for that on my channel. But yeah, I do enjoy Sally Rooney's writing a lot. Next, I read the Kindred Curse saga. I read Spark of the Everflame in November and Glow of the Everflame in December. I will say, Spark of the Everflame, very predictable. Yeah, I probably gave it a 3.5, but Glow of the Everflame is like the next step. It's like the next level in the book, the next level of the fantasy, the world building, just everything about this series. And I ended up giving Glow of the Everflame a 5-star rating, which, yeah, I had the 5-star feeling while I was reading it. And now with the third book, the third one I'm waiting to be traditionally published because I have got the traditionally published covers. The third one is technically already out on Kindle Unlimited, so I can read it now, but because of how much I loved Glow of the Everflame, I'm sort of holding off because the 4th book is not got any release date yet. So I do want to sort of spread it out so I'm not reading it all at once and then I forget by the time I get to it. But I'm getting to that point where I'm itching to get back into this series. This first book read so quickly. Second book, it's a little bit longer, as you can tell. The third book is over 1,000 pages on my Kindle. They are getting longer, and I think I just need to commit the time and do it because I'm missing being part of this world. Gem is our main character, and she is born in this little village which is outside of this demigod's big capital city, I would say, but they are known as the Descended. The Descended are the magical demigods that rule this particular realm. I believe there's 12 realms that are in this little world. Each different realm has a different power. At the very start of the book, her mother goes missing, which she does see a disagreement between her mother and one of the royal guards. Diane being a healer and her mother being a healer, this comes into play because she realizes that her mother's healing abilities were then used by the royal palace, and she had actually become a royal palace healer without anyone knowing. It was all secretive. So she starts to unveil a lot of secrets amongst her healers, her family, and just in general the Descended. But while this is all happening and she's also trying to unveil all these secrets, there is a rebel alliance, which you do get told on the back of the blurb. It's not a secret. There is a forming rebel alliance, and the king is keeping an eye on this rebel alliance, and she's also trying to get into the palace and figure out if they know anything about her mother. It's just so much fun. It's such an adventure. Yes, the first one's predictable because a lot of the things that happen, you can just see it happening and it coming, but by book 2 it just gets a lot better because book 1 is purely just setting up for where the story's about to go. So yes. Take your time with the first one, enjoy it, but the second one will just blow you away. After finishing Spark of the Everflame, I then went through the big reading slump. But the only thing I knew that was going to be able to help me get out of this reading slump, because it was weeks of just not doing anything, was reading a fan fiction. And as you guys know, I do love some Hermione, and I decided to go back to the classic. I went to Manacled, and it took me about 4 or 5 days to finish it of non-stop reading. But as soon as I started, I just had that feeling again of like, yes, this is why I love reading. It is a fan fiction. It is currently being published this year, so I don't even believe that you can download it anymore. I think it's officially off AO3, so you might have to just find someone else who has it that can send it to you if you do want to read the original work. It's an alternate universe. Voldemort's won the war. It is based on The Handmaid's Tale, so it's Handmaid's Tale meets Harry Potter, and yeah, it is dark, it is gruesome, it is not for the light-hearted. Check up the trigger warnings, but probably one of my favorite reads, and I cannot wait to see where it goes now that it's been traditionally published and what she does with this new world that's not going to be focused on obviously Harry Potter and all that. I just can't wait to see where she takes it, because her writing is the most incredible thing I've ever read. Like, it is truly impeccable. Like, nothing has ever topped her writing. I feel so immersed when I'm reading her work. Moving into my December reads, I did start off the month with You Should Be So Lucky. This is more of an emotional slow burn. It is a grumpy sunshine MM romance. It is historical, set in the 1960s. We do follow two characters. We've got Eddie, who's a baseball player. We've got Mark, who's a reporter. Mark is a reporter for more of the arts columns on his newspaper, and Eddie has just been transferred from one team to a new team in a different city. They've both been teamed up to do a news article and also follow along in Eddie's life. However, when Eddie actually makes the move over, he is struggling to make a bat and also just play the game the way he used to play for his other team. And also, Mark is also a bit unsure about how to report on this because it's not his usual reporting style. But the more that these two end up spending time together, they realize how much they have in common, and they start bonding and helping each other through their issues that they're currently having in their life, which obviously with Eddie is his sporting abilities, and we've got Mark, who's actually in his personal life really struggling because he had just lost a partner. So there is a topic of grief in here, and it is going through the emotions of, not being with the said person anymore and trying to find the new normal. I thought this book was fantastic. I'm not gonna lie, it was very emotional at some points. I did cry a couple times, and I just felt like I was very connected to all of the characters. Even the side characters, everything was really fleshed out and really well done and put together. Overall, I love this book so much. I cheered so hard for their relationship and these characters. Yeah, definitely a 4-star read in my eyes. Highly recommend it if you're looking for an MM romance. So, so good. The next book I read was Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home. I did get the special edition, as you can see here. It is stunning. Are you kidding me? Look at that. But I did read Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home and Daisy Hates The Great Undoing. I haven't got Daisy Hates 2 book in physical form yet, because I am going to wait for the special editions to come out in Waterstones, which I don't know when that is, but I'm just going to wait because I want all of these beautiful books. I did give Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home a 4-star rating, and Daisy Hates The Great Undoing a 4.5. Now, for anyone who's not read this series, think London Socialites, Gossip Girl, but make it more, I don't know, I would say it's sometimes more toxic, especially the relationships. I felt like Gossip Girl was a bit more all over the place, as this is like very like directed toxicity between the couples and their very like long-standing relationships. It's similar, but it's not. I'm definitely going to say Magnolia Parks has grown on me in this book in particular. I haven't read Into the Dark just yet. I'm a little bit too scared to go into it after what had happened and ended for this, but it was a major step up from Magnolia 1 to Magnolia 2. I am seeing worlds of a difference in even just their love and their storyline, because I was not the biggest fan of BJ. I'm still not the biggest fan of him as a character. I'm now growing more towards Magnolia. I think she's definitely becoming more of a better character, I would say. The first book, I just felt like she was talking too much about clothes, which she still does, but I think I'm just like, I'm more connected to her now. Daisy hates and Christian love them. Julian is my number one. I am praying to God at some point we get a happily ever after for Julian, or just in general a book about Julian. That would probably make my life, and that would be the reason that this series would become a 5-star series, because I love him so much. I'm so excited for the Into the Dark book and also any upcoming books, which I do know we've got 2 more for the series. Love Light Farms by BK Borison. I did read Business Casual also last year. This one I read in December, just because obviously Christmas themes. I really enjoyed Business Casual, and I thought I'm going to go back and read this entire series. I haven't enjoyed Love Light Farms as much, which is sad because I did enjoy Business Casual a lot more. I did give this 3 stars. We do follow Stella and Luca. They've been best friends for a long time, which I really enjoy a friends to lovers trope. But this one unfortunately just didn't hit the same for me. It was really lacking in the chemistry department for me, and I didn't feel like the writing was up to par with Business Casual. But I still enjoyed it. I still think it's a good Christmas read for anyone who's like looking for a Christmassy themed book. Definitely recommend it for next Christmas in December. Yeah, I'm still going to continue on with the series. I think the second book might be Mixed Signals or one of those. I'm going to continue and still see, because I really enjoyed Business Casual, so I'm hoping that her writing will just get better with each book. Next, I read Heated Rivalry. This is a hockey romance, and it's more obviously rivals to lovers. With Heated Rivalries, I have a love-hate relationship with this book. Actually, no, not even love, a like-hate relationship, because I do like the audiobook, which is how I listened to the first half, because I read out of Spotify listening hours. So I did listen to the first half on audiobook, which the audiobook, the narrator's great. Like, we have Ilya, who's a Russian man, his accent, perfection. And then we have Shane Hollander. I enjoyed the audiobook, the banter, the way it was told. It was actually really good. And I think that that's what the narration kept me going. And I was really enjoying the first half. And then I got to the second half, which obviously I read on my own, and the book does not hit the same as the audiobook. I really felt the difference in how I was reading it, and it wasn't the same. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit too spicy for me. So if you're looking for a spicy book, 100% recommend it, because this is 90% spice. Yeah, so Shane Hollander's just become the hockey captain. Ilya's obviously on the rival team, which is the Boston Bears, and every time they catch up or they end up in the same hotel, whenever the teams are versing each other, or even if they're versing different teams and they're just local to each other, they go and catch up. And it is more of like a friends with benefits scenario, but they are a bit unsure what to do because they know that their teams hate each other. I think as well the rivalry, I didn't quite feel the rivalry while I was reading it. We were told a lot about the rivalry, but we weren't shown the rivalry itself. Anyway, I ended up giving this 3-star only purely based on the audiobook, but I would say that the actual book itself, if you didn't have the audiobook, more of a 2-star. And yeah, it is like the second book in a series, which I didn't know as well. Yeah, there's more of these books if you did enjoy this one in particular, but yeah, not for me, not my type of romance that I'm sort of looking for. Next, we have Arrows Through Archer. Now, this one I found on my deep depths through TikTok, and I was really looking for an emotional romance, because sometimes I just really want an emotional one that's going to hit the gut. And this one follows 2 characters. One is Archer, and then we've got Archer's best friend's dad. His name's Mallory. I usually do not like much of an age gap romance that much anymore, but this one was just so different. I could actually feel the love and connection between them. Archer's been through some very horrific things, and he's going through a really hard time. His best friend, in order to try and get him out of the house, out of, just going to class, trying to get him motivated to do anything but just lay in bed, decides, hey, I'm gonna take you to my dad's house for this break. You're gonna come with me, and we're going to spend some time together. This is where Archer and Mallory end up getting really close. They spend a lot of nights together, bonding and sitting down, drinking, getting to know each other, just talking through their feelings, and just having a comfortable silence with each other, which was really nice. They really do find like this solace between each other and they find their safe and happy place together. I really, really enjoyed it. I gave this a 3.5 stars. I wouldn't say obviously it's the most incredible piece of work I've ever read, but what I did really enjoy was the fact that there wasn't some really weird scene with, you know, their whole relationship, especially with the son. The author covered that really tastefully, in my opinion. So, yeah, if you're sort of a bit worried about the age gap and all that, it's not weird. There is a bit of a time jump as well when their things actually do become serious. So, it's more of them like forming their relationship when they first meet, but they get more stronger as they go on. And like he is in college, so yeah, before and after college sort of thing. 3.5 stars, really enjoyed it. Sticking on the same train of reading a lot of MM romances, I did read If We Could Go Back. This was by Cara D, and I ended up giving this a 3-star rating. This one is a little bit an interesting romance. Let's just put it lightly. We do follow two married men who meet on a train one day. They become quite regularly in their meetings on this particular train and eventually form a friendship and decide to, you know, take it further and start hanging out outside of this train scenario. Yes, there is cheating involved. Yes, the relationships are not your typical relationships. There is a lot of problems, and there's also a lot of unique relationships, I would say. You have to go into it with an open mind. Don't go into this if you don't like the cheating trope. In my opinion, I didn't feel like I was resenting the male main characters while reading it. If anything, towards the end of the book, I was actually rooting for them and their relationship to happen and work. It is a big, long adventure to get to that point, but it does end up turning out that way because you get to know their situations a lot more and why they are doing what they're doing. But yeah, it was different, if that makes sense. But it wasn't my favorite romance. It's hard to explain without giving it away, but yeah, some of the things I was just like, oh, like I get where they were going, but I just like I wish that it could have been a different storyline. I then decided to change up my reading entirely and I went straight into fantasy because I was like, I need a fantasy romance. Quicksilver. Yeah, like Callie Hart Quicksilver. I read this on my Kindle. Ended up buying the physical book because I liked it so much. I gave it a 4-star. I was not expecting to give it a 4-star. Yes, things were predictable. Yes, you know, it's not the best fantasy world. And yes, it's very fast paced and it's got the spice. But I had fun. I had such a good time and it reminded me why fantasy romances are like this. Like, this is a romantasy. It is the romance with fantasy. And I'm hoping more as we go into book 2, we do get to explore the world a bit more, which obviously the ending of this will lead into something new and better. So I'm very excited for that. But for anyone who doesn't know this story, this follows Ceres. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She is like stealing from one of the queens and trying to feed herself. Where she lives, there is bare minimum nothing. This was her way of trying to support her and her brother after no longer having her parents around, but obviously she does get caught. There is a bit of a situation at the palace where she does find herself transported into a different world, and once she is there she realizes not everything is as it seems, comes face to face with death itself, and basically wants her to try and keep the portal that she went through to go between the two different realms so that she can obviously help them do what they need to do. In her particular world, fays were a legend, like they're a myth. So when she did come face to face with them, this is just like her whole world's been turned over. Now she's starting to revisit all of these stories and tales that she was told as a child and trying to piece together all of the information because like her world's literally been turned upside down and she's trying to get back to her brother to make sure that her brother is safe. So in order for Death to get what he wants from her, she decides to make a bargain with him, and yeah, that's where the story takes off and where the plot begins to build. Honestly, it was a good time. I had such a good time. I know a lot of people say that this isn't like a good fantasy, but sometimes it's right book, right time, and I can't wait for book 2. It's I have nothing else to say other than I thought it was great. Moving into something completely different, I ended up finishing the month of December with The Poppy War. Ouch. Yeah, this one cut deep, and I'm petrified to go into book two. I don't even know if I want to go into book two because I'm actually scared because of how much this book hurt. I'm just shaking even thinking about it. I've never read such on page graphic things where I was like, oh, that's bad, and then all of a sudden it just got worse and worse and worse. I'm pretty sure it was chapter 21. I just checked. Chapter 21, that's how ingrained in my brain that chapter is. I was working at Waterstones at the time during that month, and I told them that I was reading The Poppy War, and the first thing that they said was, have you got to this chapter yet? And I said, no, I'm at chapter 16. And they're like, okay, just prepare yourself. And I was like, why have I never been told to prepare myself for this book? I've always been told it's a tough read and that it was just a really good fantasy book. I've never been told, be scared. It's a very like hard read. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I've read a lot of dark things in my time. I'm trying to think of worst case scenarios of things that could possibly happen, but obviously this being based on a war brings out the worst in people, and this book was the definition of that. Some of the most horrific things that I've ever read that can be done to a human happened in this book. And I do believe I read somewhere that this was based on a war between the Japanese and the Chinese. I think I'll double check. I'll put it up on the screen if it's different. But a lot of the research that RF Kuang did for this, she learned a lot of the things that had happened. Some of the stuff that I was probably reading had happened, and probably more than half of it was a true thing that happened to some people, which is what made me like, so like it sat really deep in my stomach and I felt ill. Yeah, I just want to give warning anyone who's going into this, like, this is not like romantasy in the slightest. I didn't think that going in, but some people do. Yeah, this is just like a very graphic fantasy. This is war. This is an actual war. Yeah, I get emotionally talking about this book, but as you can already tell that this is a 5-star read for me. I've never like felt emotions the way I had while reading something like this. Like it's, yeah, truly a masterpiece. Like this is an incredible piece of work, and this was her first ever book. Like that is insane. Yeah, I will go into book two. I will. I just don't know when I'm going to be ready. We did start off January, very early months, because I had just been off such a good run from all of those books in December. I was reading in the first week of January, but I DNF'd 3 books, and I think that that's where the slump came in. First book I DNF'd was Tide Over. So I said Tide Over was too fast paced for me in my notes. I've written nothing else. I can't even remember what it was about, but yeah, that was a quick DNF. I have It's Complicated. I DNF'd as well. I don't even remember what that's about, so I can't really give much of a review. I think I started it and didn't like it. I'm not sure. Unsteady, which I've got here, this is by Peyton Corrin. I also did DNF this. This I got to 30% in. I felt like it was too cheesy for me. I didn't like the writing and the characters. I had really high hopes for this just because of the mental health representation in it, but it didn't hit. So yeah, I DNF'd, and it's probably more of a soft DNF at this stage. I may pick it back up, which is why it's been sitting on my bottom shelf. I just don't know if I'm going to go back to it yet. So we will see. It's a maybe for now. It wasn't until maybe just under 2 weeks ago I ended up picking up my first book for January. I think I was almost 2.5, 3 weeks into January at this stage, and yeah, I'd finished my first book of the month, and that was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I was lucky enough to get an art copy for this. It has already been released as of this video going up now. This was a sports romance. I'm just going to put it out there. This is probably Ali Hazelwood's spiciest book yet. I gave it a 3-star rating. So we do have Scarlett and Lucas. They are on the same swim team, same swimming complex, but different teams. And they're both trying to get into the Olympics, and Scarlett's just come off an injury which she is struggling with a bit of a mental block, and Lucas is one of the team captains. But they both are doing biology, I believe they were doing, and they had been grouped together for an assignment, which is where they obviously become a lot closer with this assignment and a bit of a forced proximity. They slowly build this bond and this chemistry, but it is more based around a physical aspect. The girlfriend of Lucas had actually tried to set them up together because of their physical interests. I do want to give a bit of pre-warning though. So with this girlfriend, Lucas's girlfriend, they've actually broken up in the story, and they are staying together because Lucas is in the public eye and he doesn't want to like bring up all of this drama before going into all of, yeah, they don't want to bring it up to the public. So they decide to fake date until they're ready to tell the public, and that's where she comes in, but she's also trying to set him up with obviously Scarlett, and she's also dating other people. So it's not like, it's different, but it's not like a cheating scenario. So yeah, I just want to point that out. But yeah, I gave this 3 stars. It was good. Not my favorite Ali Hazelwood book by any means. Relationship was not the same as like her previous books. It didn't have the same emotional connection that I wanted. So yeah, 3 stars. I did also read First Time Caller, which I have just recently put up a vlog for, so I won't go too in depth about this, but this is more of a Valentine's Day book. We've got Lucy and we've also got Aiden. Aiden is a radio show host. Lucy is a mechanic. Lucy's daughter ends up making a phone call to the radio show one night, and Lucy ends up getting some dating advice from him, and this dating advice ends up going viral a few weeks later. Not the manager, but the boss who owns the radio show ends up contacting Lucy, says, "Would love to have a segment based around you. Everyone wants to know, you know, how you're going with your love life after your viral clip, and yeah, we want to bring you on." So she signs up and they end up having a bit of a forced proximity in this workplace scenario on the radio show. I had a lot of issues with the book, which I mentioned in the vlog. It didn't flow, it didn't sit right with me, and I didn't like the way Aiden reacted towards the end of the book. But yeah, I won't go too in depth because I've already gone through it a lot in that video. So yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. It was good, but it wasn't my favorite. So yeah, it's a good Valentine's Day book, I would say, but the romance wasn't my particular favorite in my opinion. I also finished Beartown this month, so this was a 5-star read for me. Another 5-star. I mean, all of the 5 stars I've had for this video are just books that I'm obsessed with, and this one follows a particular town called Beartown, and it is a very hockey based town. Everything about it is hockey based, like all of their sponsorships is, you know, how they survive, and also just like team morale, community, etc. It's all based on this hockey. However, we do find out at the start of the book that something does happen amongst 2 of the community members, and about 40% through into the book, this big event happens, and it changes the whole perspective of the town and the book and the focus of hockey, and how hockey is, you know, affecting different people in different ways, how much they either love it or how much they either despise it. We get to see how that all unravels and how the event that we first read about ends up transpiring later on in the book. Fredrik Backman is able to transport you into this town, very atmospheric. You feel like you're there with the characters. It is one of the most incredible reads I've ever read. The storyline, the plot, it was incredible. I do know you can read this as a standalone, which yes, it does round off quite nicely. So if you do want to just read this, you can. But like me, you'll probably want to go into book 2 after finishing this. I think it's You Against Us is the title. I'm going to be starting that very soon because I just want to continue the series. It was so incredible. Very, very sad. Check up trigger warnings. On-page stuff as well. The final book that I read for the month of January was Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This is also another arc, which it does come out in April. I was lucky enough to get this through NetGalley. I went into this completely blind. I had very high expectations just because I love Abby Jimenez and I've loved most of her books. This one, unfortunately, was not my favorite at all. I gave it a 3-star rating. That is because I didn't enjoy the character's love story. I didn't enjoy the pacing. Storytelling itself was not my particular favorite. I didn't like the sequence of the story. It didn't make sense in my opinion. I felt like we got to know, you know, the relationship and then the characters, which I would have preferred the opposite. So I felt more connected to the characters when they were becoming into this new relationship, and I didn't feel like there was like a really good driving plot to hook you at the start. So I was only hooked by like maybe 50%, and even then I was a little bit let down towards the end of the book. We do have Xavier, who is a vet, and then we've also got Samantha. She is a PR marketing consultant for like a mustard company. So we do get to meet her and her mother, who has dementia, in Just for the Summer. So we get a little cameo from them there, and now we're getting to know her story in this book. She takes her kitten into the vet. Xavier is a bit of a grumpy a-hole and talks to her rudely, and she decides to prove him wrong with the situation because he says that, you know, she can't save this kitten's life. Ends up proving him wrong, coming back in and wanting to rub it in his face. That's like the very first half of the book, and then it moves into them going on some dates and moving into more of the emotional side with both of their families, as they both have a bit of a tough home life. Once they do end up getting together as well, they have a bit of a situation where it gets a bit complicated and there is a bit of a conflict with them and their relationship being able to be together, which doesn't happen until the 40-50% mark. Yes, there is a bit of a conflict, but we don't know about this conflict, or it's even mentioned even from one person's POV until later in the book. So that's sort of like the premise of the book, but I think for me it just felt too insta-lovey. There was a lot of jokes in here that just didn't hit. They felt very flat for me, and it felt like it was targeting like a specific audience. And there were also jokes about him being like very similar looking to Rhysand. We've got TikTok trends that are involved in it. We've got like actual social media things that are mentioned quite frequently across the book, and yeah, it just felt overall very insta-lovey. So it's not to say it was a bad book, it just wasn't a book for me. I did enjoy parts of it, especially the second half a lot more. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Was a little bit let down only because I had such high hopes for this book. They are all the books that I read for the month of November, December, and January. Let's hope I have a better reading month as of February and I can read way more books than I have those last few months. I hope you guys have a good reading month for the month of February as well, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Love you all.